Yoga, uniting the body with the spirit and the mind, is an absolutely transformational practice. Throughout the past few years, I have been given a front row seat to witness how combining it with social media can effectively change the world for the better. I had my very first Instagram encounter in February of 2012. One of the very first things I ever shared was this photo of my dog, Sergeant Pepper. It was right here in Aruba. We were on our way to the beach, and he stuck his head out the window the way most dogs always do. And I took this photo from the passenger seat. But instead of sharing this with my family and friends the way I normally would, I decided to upload it to this new photo sharing app called Instagram that I'd heard about. I was brand new to the world of Instagram at the time. I didn't know what followers or likes even meant. Technology was not my strongest suit. But thinking of my future, this future, that's me teaching a yoga class of 1,000 people last month, living in Aruba, becoming a New York Times bestselling author, and having over 2 million followers actually in social media, that was not part of something I could have ever imagined. I found yoga as the result of a fairly difficult childhood. When I was little, death and divorce struck my family in more ways than one. And as I grew older, I found myself a very angry, insecure teenager. I led a destructive life for many years, and finally my mother had enough, and she decided to ship me off to a meditation retreat. I was 18. I was not very excited about the idea of meditation. I didn't even know what it meant. But I didn't know it at the time, but finding meditation would turn out to be one of the biggest steps when it comes to creating balance in my life. When I graduated high school, I decided to go to Costa Rica for a couple of months just to travel with friends. I ended up staying there for 3 years. My father was not excited, but I was. These were some of the most transformational years of my entire life. I made friends that would become family. I completely changed my diet. I learned the very important art of living off $2 a day. And most important of all, I found yoga. I was deep in my meditation practice by then already, and someone told me that yoga might be able to help me with the back pain I was suffering from. And before I knew it, I would wake up every single day, first doing my meditation practice and then stepping on my yoga mat. It was through the practice of yoga that I found freedom, not just in my body, but in my mind for the very first time. It was like the final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. And I realized on a very deep level that this is something I'm meant to do. So I trained to become a certified teacher, and when I, a little while later, met and fell in love with a very handsome Aruban surfer boy, I actually ended up moving here to the island, and I started teaching yoga full-time. Fast forward a couple of years, and I was spending most of my waking hours teaching and practicing yoga here in Aruba. And it was right around this time that I uploaded that first photo of my dog with his head out the window, and I started using social media a little bit more frequently. I used it the same way I think most of you in the audience does, so a selfie here and there, maybe a photo of my breakfast, the beach. But I realized really quickly that anytime I would share a photo like this, a photo of a yoga pose, or even specifically a photo of a yoga pose on the beach in beautiful Aruba, the response I got was massive, much bigger than anything else. So I started gearing my account towards these things, yoga and balance and health and happiness. So every day I would post photos of yoga poses, of green smoothies, of sunshine. And looking at my feed, you would think I had the perfect life. I mean, really, it looks like a dream. You know, we live here, so we know how beautiful this is. To the rest of the world, this is a one-of-a-kind moment. But the thing is, nobody's life really looks like that every single day. No one has perfect days every day, no matter what social media might tell you. And even though I was living a very good life, I still had bad days just like anybody else. And on one specifically crappy day, I had a big fight with my boyfriend about something neither of us can even remember today. And it was Friday. At the end of a long day, we went out to dinner, and I decided to have a shot of tequila with my meal. Don't freak out. I don't drink tequila every day. But even though I'm a yoga instructor, I'm a very regular, normal person. I love to eat chocolate. I like a good glass of wine. And once in a blue moon, if you know me, you know I like a little bit of tequila. Never killed anyone. For some reason, I decided to upload a photo of my meal to Instagram. #tequila, #really long day. And then I put my phone away to enjoy my evening. It wasn't until the next morning that I realized the impact of what I had done. My comment feed was overflowing with comments, and people were upset, real upset. I won't bore you with all the details, but words included hypocrite, fake, and how can you call yourself a yoga instructor and drink alcohol? This was my first lesson when it comes to life and social media. We need to tell the truth. I had never experienced online judgment or negativity before. I got terrified, deleted the photo, or I would be able to show it to you today, and I thought, how on earth am I going to make all these people like me again? But I realized quickly that what had happened was entirely my own fault. I hadn't been completely honest about who I really was. I mean, to all of these people, I was supposed to be this perfect yoga person on a beach, right? Not a human being who has arguments and sometimes drinks alcohol. This is the danger of social media. People will form an image of you, of your life, based solely on the things that you share. So maybe we all need to be a little bit more mindful of what it is that we are sharing. If every single thing you post are the perfectly orchestrated, filtered, beautiful moments of your life, social media becomes filled with images and lifestyles that are impossible to attain because no one has that life every single day. And in the end, we scroll through our Instagram feed, and instead of feeling inspired, we feel inadequate, like we're not enough. And then connecting online becomes a disconnect. And this is not using social media in a sustainable way as a society. So I decided then and there that if I was going to do this, I had to completely change my approach. I started sharing more regular sides to my life, very careful not to portray myself as a one-sided human being. And when a little while later, my boyfriend and I hit a rough patch, fighting a lot, I decided to share all of my thoughts online. Every day was a big struggle, and I found myself meditating on things like trust and commitment. And whenever I had a realization that came from the pain I was experiencing, I wrote it down and I shared it online. And the funny thing is, I started using Instagram not just for photography, but for emotion. And I was received with open arms. Not only were people liking my posts, they were resonating, feeling something. I went from having 10,000 followers on Instagram to hundreds of thousands of followers in only a couple of months. And this was my second lesson. Being vulnerable is everything. By allowing myself to be a real human being with real problems, I made a connection far deeper than any Throwback Thursday ever could. As my community grew, I started traveling the world as a yoga instructor, using Instagram to sell all of my classes alone. And before I knew it, I had hit 1 million followers, 1 million people following my life every single day. The number it's too big to comprehend. And things started to move real fast right around here. You might not know this, but social media fame is an actual thing in today's world. So all these big offers from brands and companies started flooding in. My classes would sell out in seconds, and I started traveling more than I was spending time at home. By March of last year, I was completely drained from having traveled for 12 months almost straight. My back was acting up for the first time in years, but still, I found it harder and harder to slow down. To get a break, I decided to go to a yoga festival in Costa Rica with my best friend in the world. We spent the week dancing barefoot all night long and swimming in waterfalls. And when one night I actually cried from the relief of having a few days off, she told me she'd been worrying about me for quite some time. Don't forget the reason you are here, she said. You need to slow down and start taking better care of that heart of yours. And I left that week with a feeling of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. She was right. Don't forget the reason you are here. I came home, decided to completely change my life, to slow down, to stop traveling, only to almost immediately say yes to a series of classes that would take up all the time I had off for that entire year. And this is how life works. When we don't take the hints, eventually we get hit with a brick in the head. On March 10th, just a week or so later, I was traveling from Aruba to Bonaire to teach a sold-out retreat on our neighbor island. As I was leaving the check-in line, I felt a stab at the side of my stomach, and I collapsed to the floor, dizzy with pain. I decided to get up anyway because we had a big group of people waiting that very same night, but I'd never in my life experienced a pain like this ever before. We made it to Bonaire. On the way there were moments when I thought I was going to die from this pain. We went to the hospital. The doctors admitted me right away. They thought maybe I had a ruptured appendix, but they couldn't find anything wrong with me at all with ultrasound. They gave me morphine over and over again, but nothing would diminish the pain. 9 hours and 20 minutes after I felt that first stab at the airport, I was still screaming out in agony. One of the doctors had enough and said, "We need to make this stop." He decided to give me a huge dose of morphine, telling me, at the very least, this will make you fall asleep. And a little while later, I took what felt was my first breath of that entire day. And as I exhaled, the pain started ebbing away. Finally, I felt peace. At that moment, the phone rang. It was a friend of mine calling from Costa Rica. My best friend had crashed into a truck driving on the wrong side of the highway, and she had spent the past 9 hours and 20 minutes in the emergency room fighting for her life. The moment my pain went away, the moment I took that first breath, that was the moment she took her last. I woke up from surgery the next day wishing that I hadn't, but I was there, alive, wondering what kind of a dream it was I was having and how long it would take for me to wake up. I had my first interaction with the outside world 2 days later through Instagram. I don't know why, but I felt this need to write, so I wrote. I could have chosen to disappear completely, but something urged me to share my deepest, rawest grief with the world. As you can imagine, this is a big change from what I was usually sharing with my followers. From posting beautiful photos of yoga poses and inspirational words of wisdom, here was a girl tied to a hospital bed wanting to die from grief. I lost 100,000 followers, just like that. And the thing is, I don't blame them, because that space was immediately filled by new people, all wanting to show their genuine love and support. I received thousands, literally thousands of emails and letters, and late at night, when I felt like I couldn't breathe from the heaviness of this pain, I read every word shared with me on that day. The outpouring of unconditional love showered over me by strangers, by people I'd never even met, was nothing short of a miracle. It took a very long time for me to heal. I'm still healing, but I shared this entire journey with the world. And I know for a fact, if it wasn't for the process of writing about my grief and sharing it online, I wouldn't be able to stand here today talking about this. This was my third, but probably not my last lesson when it comes to life and social media. There is so much love and compassion out there in the world. When people talk to me about social media and negativity, I tell them the story of how I lost my best friend and 1 million people came to my rescue. How every day there were people out there who would wake up, go to my page just to make sure I was still breathing. We can use the world of social media in a completely different way. Instead of it being a breeding ground for fear and insecurity, why not use it to create real human connection? My following is at almost 2 million now, and I still post a ton of yoga and inspiration, but everything that comes my way, if it makes me feel something, if it stirs emotion, I tell the truth. My boyfriend and I, we got married last year, and I shared that online. And then our dog, the same one with his head out the window in that first Instagram post, he passed away, and I shared that journey too. Even though telling the truth in a public space can be absolutely terrifying, I know it can change the world for the better. Because every time you tell the truth about how you feel, you inspire other people to do the same. And with time, we may even have a society that's supportive of human beings being human beings. Talking about your pain is relieving it, and sharing your story is letting it go. Because we all feel the same things, just not always at the same time. And being vulnerable, that's how we heal. If I can give you one thing with this talk, it's this. When it comes to bearing your soul with the world, you have nothing to be afraid of. So tell the truth. It might just change the world. Thank you.